Hi, welcome to our Minnesota Masterclass. Today we're going to be talking about everything you need to know about setting up your cannabis business, particularly for those that are looking to apply and verify their social equity status in the Minnesota cannabis licensing window that's set to occur in Q1 of 2025. I'm your host, I'm Dr. Lucas McCann. I'm the CSO of CannDelta. We're America's #1 cannabis licensing firm. We've got a lot of information we're going to cover today. So let's hop right in. Thanks for joining. This will be one part of a multi-part series that walks Minnesota entrepreneurs through all of the steps, all of the decisions they'll need to make surrounding starting their business in Minnesota. For the agenda today, we've got the following. We're going to start with an introduction to the presenters, myself, a market update. We're going to then move into the timelines for Minnesota and what you can expect over the next 60, 90, even 120 days. Talk about what social equity is, what it isn't, some of the license types, and how to best prepare for your application. We'll go through a checklist, including documentation, deadlines. We'll speak to common pitfalls during the application verification process. And then after, we've got a two-part segment where we'll be answering your questions live. We're going to make sure that everyone has all the information they need before leaving, so make sure you stay tuned for our live Q&A session with consultants from CannDelta. I'm your host. My name's Lucas McCann. I'm the CSO here at CannDelta. I'm one of the co-founders. I've got a background in medicinal organic chemistry from York University, and I've been working in the chemistry space for a long time, academically, for the federal government in the Department of Controlled Substances, and I've been working very closely with entrepreneurs for the last 7 years since 2018, helping folks in the cannabis and controlled substances areas to get the licenses they need to be able to conduct business both in the medical cannabis and adult use frameworks across the country and internationally. Our firm works everywhere from Germany to Australia. We are CannDelta. We're America's #1 cannabis licensing firm. We have a large team of PhDs, MBAs, regulatory experts, scientists, hired nerds that work together with entrepreneurs, not just to help on filling out license application paperwork, but to help to find locations, design facilities or retail dispensaries, set up security plans, help to work with vendors to secure contracts at a reasonable price, and to provide small business coaching for entrepreneurs as they're going through the process. And as many people learn when going through cannabis, it can be one of the most difficult areas and industries to succeed in. So we're there to help coach our clients through all of the parts of setting up their small business. In our time being in business, we have helped set up a large number of cannabis entrepreneurs. We've helped launch over 300 cannabis businesses since 2018. It's our goal to provide folks with the expert guidance and support that they need when going through the licensing phase, when operationalizing their business, oftentimes after a license has been awarded, once they need help leveraging our marketing agency, which is an internally held marketing agency to help with social media management, website design, and sales. And then for those who are also looking to make an exit, we help with mergers and acquisitions. Our mission as small business coaches is to empower entrepreneurs in the dynamic industry to help them to thrive and to guide them through the state's cannabis regulatory framework by providing our guidance, planning, and ensuring solutions from success, from licensing, all the way to operations and beyond. We've got a number of free resources. I would recommend that folks familiarize themselves with our website. If you go to CannDelta.com/US/Minnesota, you can see all the great information we have available there on the licensing application process itself, the licensing types, best practices there for blogs, articles, and our YouTube page is filled with Minnesota-specific and general small business coaching tips for the cannabis industry. So feel free to verify those. Now again, this is going to be one part today of a multi-part series focused on Minnesota cannabis licensing and operations support. So stay tuned for that schedule as we release it closer to the time. Application history. So in 2024, the Minnesota initiated a licensing process for social equity applicants in the cannabis industry, and the key timelines were as follows. The social equity verification window closed in July of 2024, and the license pre-approval application was open from July 24th to August 12th of last year. This initiated licensing process for social equity applicants, again, were able to submit their eligibility for social equity, and we had a large number of applications that had been submitted to the state for approval. Now, with the total 1,800 and some applications that were submitted, 2/3 of those applications were rejected. That's 1,169 of the over 1,800 applications were rejected. So more than a 2/3 majority were rejected for the following reasons. Many incomplete applications that lacked documents, were incomplete, or not enough description or detail was provided as part of that submission. Some candidates had made multiple submissions, which then disqualified their applications under the regulations. And as a subset of that, there was some concealed ownership instances where applicants attempted to disguise true investors in their companies, which also led to disqualification. Legal challenges followed, and there was an alleged OCM decisions. It was alleged that the OCM's decisions were arbitrary and lacked some transparency. So, where we're at now for the introduction to Minnesota's cannabis industry. So we're going to walk through some of the legalization milestones here. And I think most importantly, let's highlight that Minnesota legalized adult use cannabis on May 30th, 2023. And anyone applying for the social equity verification window has to do so basically within the next 15 to 30 days. The regulatory framework that we're working in, the Office of Cannabis Management, is the regulatory body that oversees Minnesota's cannabis industry, and they'll be accepting applications from February 18th to March 14th. In terms of the economic projections here, at a glance, Minnesota's cannabis market is projected to reach $1.5 billion by 2029 and creating upwards of 40,000 jobs in the state. And for the current status, the commercial cannabis sales in Minnesota are set to begin in early 2025. In my opinion, that's a bit optimistic. Probably late 2025 is when we'll actually start to see return on investment for license holders coming into Q1 of this year. For the forecasted market size for Minnesota's cannabis industry, in orange at the bottom, we see the medical cannabis market. And starting at the beginning of 2025, we'll start to see the recreational cannabis market sales begin to have a strong impact, starting at a projection of about $500 million this year, about $500 million this year, $800 million next year, and penetrating the $1 billion mark in 2027. Leading to close to $1.4 billion projected by 2029 and 2030. This is a bit of a more conservative approach from some other values that have been released prior, but ones that we feel more closely reflect what is realistic for the state. Now, to go through the licensing dates, some important dates to know are January 15th is when the social equity verification window opens. So what is social equity? Why is it important? Why should we see if we want to apply? We'll get to that in just a moment. That 15-day window closes on January 30th. That is the last date where folks who have a potential social equity verification can apply to fall under the social equity lottery. On February 18th, the license application window opens in Minnesota. This is an exciting and very, very important time because this represents the date that the OCM will begin opening the portal to allow for submissions for folks to enter the Minnesota cannabis industry. That portal will remain open until March 14th. On March 14th, 2025, that window closes and will remain shut for an indefinite amount of time. We're not quite sure when that portal will open again, so if you have an interest, it's very important to pay attention and to get the proper documentation in to submit before March 14th. Following that, we're expecting that sometime between May and June, we'll start to see these licenses awarded. Folks will be allowed to find locations, operationalize their business, and hopefully begin sales probably by the end of 2025 is what we're estimating realistically. So we've mentioned the social equity window. What is social equity? Why is it important? And how do I go about proving that I fall under one of these categories? So we'll start with the why. Social equity is important, and many of the states that have been legalizing for the last several years have implemented some sort of criteria for social equity eligibility. The reason that it's important is because cannabis prohibition disproportionately impacted certain communities. Typically, these were poor communities, and by a large margin, disproportionately Black and brown communities. So these communities definitely had higher arrest rates. So if we look at the number of cannabis convictions in the US over the last several decades versus those who were like minority versus, let's say, just general white folks, disproportionately larger chances of being convicted for a cannabis offense if you were Black and brown. This disrupted families. There was lost opportunities as a result of this unfair, how do we describe this? Unfair targeting of minority communities that was occurring in the US. And this is in one way a form of truth and reconciliation and restorative justice to those communities by allowing them somewhat of a first shot at the new legal industry. This helps to also promote diversity in the cannabis industry. So typically with many industries, middle-aged white men are the leaders in the boardrooms, and by having a social equity initiative, such as many other progressive states, New York, New Jersey, and Minnesota, this allows folks who are typically sort of those marginalized communities to come in, take advantage of this new industry, and give them early and first access to a brand new industry. And this is important because these groups are typically underrepresented and marginalized. This also helps prevent market monopolization by giving local entrepreneurs, folks who have resided in the state and folks who have directly been impacted by cannabis prohibition, a chance to compete against larger, well-funded, multi-state operators, larger corporations, and folks who might be benefiting from some kind of generational wealth. So, who qualifies for social equity? We have several groups here that can qualify for social equity. So those who have experienced cannabis convictions or have family members who have also had cannabis convictions could qualify. Veterans, this can include folks who have served in the National Guard, and those who have been dishonorably discharged for cannabis. Residency-based criteria and the farmers category. So, for cannabis convictions, this includes individuals convicted of cannabis-related offenses before May 1st, 2023. This can also extend to family connections. So if you have a parent, a spouse, or a dependent, and they were convicted before that date, you yourself would qualify for social equity. Okay? Or if you are also a dependent of someone who was convicted, that would also qualify you for a social equity eligibility. For military status, it's those who are veterans or served as the part of the National Guard members affected by cannabis-related convictions. And this also includes those who are dishonorably discharged due to cannabis-related offenses. Okay. For residency-based criteria, we're looking for folks who have lived for 5 or more years in certain areas. This includes areas of high cannabis enforcement rates, over 20% poverty rate or high SNAP assistance, median family income of less than 80% of the state average, and high vulnerability per CDC's Social Vulnerability Index. So what is all that? What does it mean? If you are unsure about whether you qualify for the residency criteria, we'd recommend that you check and verify the OCM's map. We'll have a link for that in our circulated email that will come out after the webinar. It'll also be in this presentation. And for farmers, must have operated a farm for 3 or more years with gross sales between $5,000 and $100,000 annually. All right, so in terms of examples of evidence to submit and to prove your social eligibility, we would look for some of the following. Court records or a relative's court records, criminal background check report showing cannabis convictions, a pardon or expungement document, and if applicable, proof of relationship such as a birth certificate, marriage certificate, guardianship papers, adoption records, custody papers, dependency documents, tax documents showing claim dependency for relevant years, and signed notarized affidavits affirming relationships. If you are demonstrating that you are a military veteran, we would be looking for these examples of evidence. This can include a certificate of release or discharge from active duty, official documents outlining service and discharge details, a copy of veteran ID cards, Veteran Affairs records, both state and federal, would be accepted. Veterans Affairs VA Disability Award letter, VA benefits documents, VA medical records, military court records, discharge records indicating a type of discharge, for example, dishonorable, and appeal or correction of board decisions. For military, judicial, or administrative records, we could also accept military service verification from the Department of Defense. For residency records, again, we are looking for folks with high cannabis residency in high cannabis enforcement rates as determined by federal or state studies data. Folks who have lived in areas with a poverty rate of 20% or more, and who have a median family income of not exceeding 80% of the statewide median family income, or if in a metropolitan area median did not exceed the greater of 80% of the statewide median family income, or 80% of the family income for that metropolitan area. At least 20% of households receiving the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program assistance. Populations that experienced a high level of vulnerability according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the Social Vulnerability Index. And again, a map for this is on the OCM's website. Examples of evidence could include a residential lease, a driver's license or other form of valid government ID with an address, an abstract of lifetime driving record, a mortgage loan, a bank statement, a utility bill addressed to the prospective applicant, W-2 or 1099 forms, income tax returns, court documents, credit card statements, and housing authority records. If you are unsure if your documents would suffice for proving your social eligibility status, feel free to send us a note or pick up the phone and give us a call. We'd be happy to work with you to help guide you through the social eligibility process. And for all CannDelta clients, this is a free service we provide to help our social equity applicants get verified and to submit their applications. For those that would qualify as farmers, evidence that could be accepted could include tax returns and financial records, business registration documents, labor and management records such as payroll statements, sales and transaction records, land ownership or lease documents, agricultural certifications, and agricultural grants or loans. The OCM Social Equity Map is available online on the OCM's website. You can simply input a zip code, an address, or an area to determine if any of those criteria for residency would apply. The social equity verification window again closes on January 30th, 2025. The exclusivity of the process, so only verified applicants are eligible to participate in the social equity lottery, which is held before the general lottery, which will offer a very unique advantage. This will give a priority to folks to participate in the social equity lottery, and should they not be successful, their application will automatically be entered into the general lottery, which occurs after. Failing to apply for verification means missing out on this opportunity. So consideration for both the social equity and the general licensing lotteries is the advantage to applying for social equity. For the step-by-step process, we'd submit an application with the required documentation during the application window. The OCM would then conduct the background checks to verify their eligibility, and the applications are reviewed for completeness, compliance, and authenticity. There's a very strict deadline on this, so late submissions are not considered, and verification is mandatory for participating in the social equity lottery. Here are some of the licenses available in this lottery round. There is the micro business license, which allows for small-scale operations with limited plant counts and production capacities. It promotes local and small business involvement and may encompass cultivation, processing, and retailing. It allows one cannabis retail location. The meso business. It's a medium-scale operation which is larger than a micro business, engages in multiple aspects of cannabis operations, which is ideal for businesses looking to scale up. It allows for 3 cannabis retail locations. The cultivator license involves the growing and harvesting of cannabis and ranges from small to large-scale operations. The manufacturer license produces recreational and medical cannabis products, transforms raw cannabis into its various forms, extracts and infused products, and ensures product safety and quality. And then the retailer license, often referred to as the dispensary license, engages in direct sales to consumers, must comply with strict advertising and marketing regulations, and that particular license allows the operator to have up to 5 locations. We typically recommend for those who are looking to secure their spot in Minnesota's cannabis industry to apply for the microbusiness license. The microbusiness license has the unique advantage of allowing vertical integration, and if the eligibility is complete, the application has no the application is complete and not lacking any of the documents, applicants for the microbusiness are effectively going to be evaluated on a merit-based status, meaning those with complete applications should be awarded a license in this round and will not participate in a lottery. If you're looking to enter into the industry with some level of certainty, the microbusiness license is probably the one for you to apply for. It allows the applicant to leverage one aspect of the many available under that particular license type, and allows the applicant to open up one cannabis retail dispensary location. Other license types include the wholesaler, which is an intermediary between manufacturers and retailers, a B2B delivery service for cannabis products and cannabis. They handle larger quantities of cannabis and require storage and logistics capabilities. The transporter license, which ensures that the secure transport of cannabis products is being maintained and manages vehicles and logistics and follows strict transportation guidelines. The testing facility is the analytical lab which provides the testing services for cannabis products and ensures that they pass the scrupulous protocols and testing requirements for compounds such as pesticides, residual solvents, yeast mold bacteria and other microbials, and heavy metals. The event organizer license coordinates cannabis-related events and must adhere to public safety regulations and compliance standards for marketing and advertising. The delivery service provides home delivery, a B2C delivery of cannabis products from a retail location, and requires efficient logistics delivery systems and follow delivery and packaging regulations. The application fees are listed here for the cannabis microbusiness, all the way down to the cannabis delivery service. The fees range from $250 to $10,000 depending on the type of application that is being submitted. Once awarded, there'll be an initial application fee and a license renewal fee that will occur annually after the license is awarded. To become a retail dispensary operator, there are 3 ways to start a retail dispensary. One might be able to apply for a microbusiness with one location, with a low application fee of $500 and a $0 licensing fee. The Bezo business allows for 3 locations. Applicants in this category will participate in the lottery. The application fees are $5,000 with a $5,000 licensing fee. And finally, the retailer license allows for 5 locations with application fees of $2,500 with annual licensing fees of the same amount. All the activities listed for the applications under a microbusiness are listed here. Because this is a vertically integrated license, applicants can tick the box for every single activity and be a vertically integrated entity. Once the lottery has been conducted, this will be the following steps that precede the lottery process. The initial application will be submitted, lottery will be won, and you'll be awarded your license. Congratulations, that's a significant step to being able to move forward, operationalize your business, and open up your doors. From there, we'll need to finalize much of the paperwork required to begin the operations. Now, a lot of the work gets done in the head end of the application. Minnesota's got one of the toughest applications in the country. From there, we'll need to complete standard operating procedures, find a suitable location, conduct a zoning check, ensure we've respected all the setback distances from sensitive areas such as schools, places of worship, and other operators, engage with municipal authorities to secure your necessary support for the business, design a floor plan, implement a security design, and then following that, begin construction with the proper building permits, acquire a certificate of occupancy, implement your track and trace and inventory management software, pass a final inspection, and then from there we'll be able to begin operating once that final inspection has been passed. At that point, you'll begin opening your doors, conducting transactions or cracking seeds, or producing cannabis products. We'll go into much more detail on these 6 steps in subsequent webinars, so if we skipped ahead too quickly, don't worry, more of this information is going to come. In terms of the licensing application process itself, there are several very important criteria that need to be addressed. Again, Minnesota has one of the toughest applications in the country with so much work being required on the head end. Further to that, all the promises made in the application also have to be executed upon, and submitting a plan for an application also means that you have to effectively build out what you say you're going to do. So working with a consultant or someone who's been through the process before can be paramount to make sure that what you're actually putting down on paper is achievable and scalable. A lot of the key requirements for putting this together will include an entity and individual disclosures, a complete operating plan for the kind of business that you'll be conducting with the activities that you'll be performing clearly listed as part of your business plan. In addition to that, we'll need a diversity plan, and social equity verification documents will be required to participate in the social equity lottery. And property is not required for this step because, again, it is a lottery, and that would be very unfair to have folks submit leases with a lottery if they weren't guaranteed a spot. The applications will be reviewed on a pass-fail basis, and the selected applicants will be contacted to submit additional information or supporting documents prior to licensure with a very, very short window of time to address any concerns from the OCM. That concludes everything we wanted to address in the license application process. We'll have more information on subsequent steps after social equity verification window closes. I'm your host, Lucas McCann. We're now going to take a quick break before we go into our question and answer period.